It is Monday, October 10th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the Week 5 Recap Pod. I'm your host, Matt Schaff, and back with me is my Recap Pod partner, Adam Krautwurst. Adam, thank you for making it back to join me this Monday. I know it's difficult to be both like a fantasy podcaster and an international crime lord, though.
Man, that would sound exciting. That sounds very exciting. But no, thanks for having me back. I'm actually off of work today, which is nice, so I can really lock into this fantasy football stuff.
Sweet. And how did your teams do yesterday? Any particularly bad losses or guys that came through that you weren't sure about trusting heading into the slate?
You know, my Nyheim Hines, T. Higgins teams were I was so excited about Nyheim Hines, and then him getting he gets 3 touches in the first 4 plays, like he's about to do really well. And then, T. Higgins last night, like someone should be fired for that nonsense. But yeah, other than that, teams did pretty well. Saquon stepped up there, came back out in the end of that game there in London, said I'm not staying off the field, unlike T. Higgins, and came in and did really well.
Those are the worst because you go through everything throughout the week, and let's say you recommend somebody and he plays the game but doesn't work out. You can at least look at it and be like, well, okay, did I get this wrong? Or is it hidden in his usage and it was just bad luck? But if you're like, hey, Teddy Bridgewater's a good quarterback play this week, and he gets knocked out on his first pass attempt, it's like, well, there's that, that's just football at that point. Obviously we know that that's part of it, but that's the one that crushes you for the rest of Sunday.
Yeah. And at least with Teddy, like from a mental perspective, like it happened on Sunday in the middle, like Nyheim Hines, once it happens on Thursday Night Football, you're like, my whole week is just jacked on that team. It's just
storm clouds hanging over it. So we're going to go through Sunday's game-by-game action. We'll start with the Giants and Packers in London in the morning. And everybody's talking about this like it was a big upset, but I think it's really kind of the first revelation for everybody, which probably should have been week 1, the way that they got beaten down. But I think it's really starting to reveal to everybody that the Packers are just not that good at this point. I think everybody needs to lower their expectations for Green Bay. That matters less for fantasy purposes than it does for real football. On the fantasy front, the Giants, remain the Giants. Daniel Jones had a season high in passing yards. It was 217 passing yards. Darius Slayton led the team in targets, catches, and receiving yards. It was an okay day for him, and absolutely nobody else really did anything of note as a receiver. Like it was Saquon Barkley again, and then a bunch of guys that you should try to forget about as quickly as you can.
Yeah, the over-under for Daniel Jones on passing yards, I think it was like 180 or something. I wanted to take the under so bad, but I didn't touch it. But yeah, I mean, their receivers obviously stink, and Daniel Jones is doing the best that he can out there. I feel like, he's running the ball a lot, 7 carries, and that doesn't include the actual scrambles that he had. But Saquon Barkley is a stud, 13 carries, 6 targets. He would have had more if he didn't leave the game for, I don't know, maybe two or 3 drives. He left the game for. It's so nice. Usually when guys leave the game, they're never coming back ever. Especially when he goes into the locker room, like, all right, Saquon, we'll see you in a month. Thanks for playing. But then to have him come back out and demand to come back out. I think did Brightwell score while Barkley was gone? I think he plunged in for like a 1-yard touchdown. But
I think so.
Which would have been nice for Barkley to have, but we'll take Barkley's RB12 finish or RB13, I think he was, and he's a stud. You keep obviously running him out there, but the rest of the offense is just terrible.
Yeah. And Marcus Johnson led the wide receivers in playing time and routes. Obviously, that's not somebody you're using. The whole situation is the only reason that Kadarius Toney is even still worth talking about. I mean, he's been out past couple weeks with hamstring issues. He's certainly not somebody that you need to hang on to, as we've been saying for weeks now. But he is in one of the very few situations in the league where if he just gets healthy, then there should be opportunity, because the Giants absolutely need, I mean, they're 4-1. So I'm sure that they're happy right now with how things have wound up, but I would also bet that they're not like, yeah, this is working great, we don't need to fix anything. They need some big time receiving upside. And Kadarius Toney is like the guy with the ability to change that. Wan'Dale Robinson as well. He should be back at some point relatively soon from his knee issue. So I think both of those guys are stashable as long as there's a roster spot to play with to do it, because there is room for either of those guys to turn into, the top target getter on this team that needs receiving upside.
Yeah, yeah. Wandell and Tony, like you said, Tony, the only reason you're holding him is because this receiving core is so bad. And Jones looks okay. I mean, he just has no. I mean, the receiving core, that's gotta be the worst receiving core. Maybe the Bears that you're trotting out there every single week. I mean, there's not much he can do it. The Packers obviously have a good defense too. So he was fine for what they gave him. But yeah, they got to get some of these receivers healthy.
On the Packers side, the receivers kind of playing out the way that they do. Randall Cobb was the big guy yesterday. I mean, we shouldn't expect that to be a change. I think that's just the kind of thing that's going to happen. We know Aaron Rodgers likes Randall Cobb. I think the biggest thing to take note of is that A.J. Dillon's playing time was way down yesterday. He's been between 51 and 58% snap share each of the first 4 games. Yesterday was just 32%. He had 6 carries in that game, 0 targets. I think we have to see if it happens another game before we worry about it, but it's at least something we now have to factor into whether we use A.J. Dillon in week 6, because you look at the Jets matchup and you think, okay, it should be a good spot for both of these running backs to get playing time and touches. That's what I thought heading into the game against the Giants. I thought A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones would each be at least fine to use. It was only Aaron Jones that was fine, and we saw the offense didn't do anything special anyway.
Well, plus Aaron Jones just looks so much better than A.J. Dillon does. I mean, A.J. Dillon looks good when Aaron Jones is hurt and they're playing in a foot of snow. Like, that's when you're like, yeah, and generally that tends to be at the end of the year, leading into the next fantasy season. Like, oh, next year I'm going to go get A.J. Dillon. And then he's just nothing without a massive lead in the game. And newsflash, they're not going to play with many leads because they're not very good. They're the same Packers team they've been for 3 years, but they don't have Devontae Adams to bail them out on every single play. So now he's throwing 12 targets to Randall Cobb. I mean, what are we doing here? Lazard, Dubs. But we knew this going into the year, right? We knew that they weren't going to have receivers. They were going to struggle to score. They were going to win in defense, and they're two running backs. And when it's not working, the running backs are really going to struggle. I would have liked to see Jones get a couple more targets too. Only 3. In a game. I know they weren't playing behind the whole game or anything like that, but still the game was close there late in the third and the whole fourth quarter, but he just looks so much better than A.J. Dillon. So I would continue to start Jones with confidence. I would not start A.J. Dillon with confidence, but again, with all the running back injuries, I'm sure there's room for him out there. But any of these receivers, I mean, I guess Dobbs could be something down the road here, but right now it's just not working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Dobbs is in like wide receiver 4 territory. He's going to have weekly upside. I think Alan Lazard is in the same kind of territory. Randall Cobb's going to pop up, but I mean, even yesterday he was 3rd among Packers wideouts in playing time. So don't consider it any kind of change. It was just that kind of game that's going to happen when you're talking about a receiving core that has 0 studs. I would love to not have to rely on Packers offense, but it is what we've talked about it to this point. Bills Steelers up next, and I should barely mention the Steelers because this was really a 1-team game. And we knew going in that the Bills were probably not going to have much trouble in this game. It's not shocking to see Josh Allen put up huge numbers. It's also not shocking to see Gabe Davis make big plays. 98-yard touchdown, 62-yard touchdown, looked excellent while doing it. I think that it's important to kind of put it in context, and it was a positive overall for his usage. He saw both a season high in target share, 19.4% if we look at just Josh Allen pass attempts, because Case Keenum came in late in that game and took over the last bit of the game for Josh Allen. Also a season high in targets per route for Gabe Davis. He went 13.2% in that particular category in week 1, then 8.6, 7.3, 18.2 yesterday against the Steelers. So the question, I think, is how much of that is the ankle that cost him some time, might have limited it didn't limit his availability the 2 games before this one, but maybe it limited how well he was running routes, how effective he was in the field. Tough to know about that. Or how much of it was missing Isaiah McKenzie, missing Dawson Knox. So I would say yesterday was the kind of game that you hoped would happen plenty of times with Gabe Davis. Not that you expect the 2 long touchdowns, but you expect the decent target share, almost 20%, and the big play capability for him.
Yeah, both Gabe Davis kind of smash games, week 1 and week 5 yesterday, were kind of like a story of like Gabe Davis truthers cheering the fact that he's good and whatever, cheering the fact that they drafted him, but also on the other end, the Gabe Davis haters are like, yeah, but he only saw 6 targets, or even I think week 1 he might have seen 4 targets and scored or something. Like, he doesn't see a lot of targets. But this just goes to show you, like, targets in general are worth almost 3 times more than carries. Josh Allen targets are worth almost 3 times more than anybody else's targets. 6 targets from Josh Allen, it makes you wide receiver 1 on the week, so a 98-yard touchdown catch helps. but yeah, it was definitely the ankle. I'm obviously locked into the Bills games every week, and they weren't even running him on those type of routes, those deep crossers, those deep posts, because he didn't have it in him. Now he's had it in him with the ankle. I think he's back again. 6 to 8 targets is probably what he's going to see week in and week out, but that's fine. 6 to 8 Josh Allen targets. He's obviously startable every week moving forward. You should have been starting him anyways, whenever he's active, because unless he's going to pull a T Higgins, he's going to be out there getting Josh Allen targets. So yeah, Gabe Davis is fine. He is their big play guy. And so it would have nice to have seen Isaiah McKenzie in the offense this week, but Shakir and Hodgins did just fine without him.
He's Mike Williams. Gabe Davis is Mike Williams for the Bills. There are going to be weeks where you start him and you get 1 catch for 15 yards. And there are going to be other weeks where you get 4 catches for 140 and 2 touchdowns. And you just have to live with that. That's what you drafted in Gabe Davis. So you're happy with what happened yesterday. Nothing really changed in what you should expect going forward. Elsewhere in that Bills offense, Devin Singletary leads the backfield still, but I saw an interesting note from Pro Football Focus's Nathan Jenke on this. 76.4% playing time for Devin Singletary so far when the Bills are tied or trailing, 51.4% when they're leading. I don't really understand why the Bills would play Zach Moss or James Cook more when they're ahead, other than maybe when they're way ahead, getting James Cook some more opportunities just to get used to the NFL game. So we'll see if this remains a trend. I think the positive for Devin Singletary is he's still the backfield leader. The negative is this team is not going to spend a whole lot of time trailing. So if this is really how they plan to operate and how they continue to operate, it's bad news for Devin Singletary's playing time and touch counts going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think they're going to play in some closer games where they win. Like week 2, they blew out the Titans and didn't play their starters the last quarter and a half. Yesterday, they didn't play their starters the last quarter. I mean, that game was over at halftime. So I think they've 2 games so far, they've won by so much that they're just not playing. Which is I think the smart thing to do is, don't bang the Devin Singletary when you can put in the backups. Now, I don't know why Zach Moss is on the team anyways. Zach Moss is horrific. And then you see that James Cook touchdown run. That was against Pittsburgh starters on defense. And he looked like he was shot out of a cannon, comes right up the middle, gets one-on-one with Minkah Fitzpatrick and just runs around him like he's not even there. That's what they drafted James Cook for, and hopefully that's what will lead to more kind of script independent touches for James Cook when he can get in there when they're losing, when they're winning, or whatever. But he's definitely the most explosive player on the team. That's what we've been looking for out of him. But Singletary, I think they've just been in some weird game scripts where it says he's not in there when they're winning, but that's because a lot of times they're winning by 30 and they're just not nobody's in there.
Yeah, you should take Devin Singletary out if you're up by 35 for the entire second half. So,
right.
I mean, Devin Singletary probably climbed too high in our week 5 rankings based on what we already knew he was. And an offense that just doesn't want to rely on anybody in the backfield. He's always going to be a guy who might do well on touches, might get touchdown opportunities in an offense that's moving the ball and scoring a ton. But he's also going to be a low ceiling guy. So we'll consider that risk as we decide whether to start him going forward. On the Pittsburgh side, they ended up with plenty of passing yards, 327 yards for Kenny Pickett, most ever for a Steelers rookie quarterback in his first start. 6.3 yards per attempt, though. So a lot of that was him throwing a whole bunch of passes. So it's nice that they did feel comfortable enough to throw a whole bunch of passes. Nice that he did spread the targets around. We got Deontay Johnson, 13 targets as the lead target for these guys. Chase Claypool had 9. George Pickens third with 8 targets. So George Pickens came away with the best receiving numbers, but let's make sure we keep it in perspective, realize he was third among Steelers in targets and really didn't see a jump yesterday versus previous games in the rate of targets per route.
Yeah, he's just so good. I can't say it enough. He's one of the top receiver. I mean, he gets open by knocking defensive backs over. Like that, there was a play yesterday where a guy was trying to play bump and run, and Pickens just threw him and then ran a drag route. Was wide open. He's so good. But again, without an injury, he's not going to really be able to hit that ceiling. But I do think, like from watching the game yesterday, I know it doesn't show from the scoreboard, but the game was a little bit closer at the beginning than it seemed. They the Steelers muffed the punt early on, which gave the Bills kind of back-to-back possessions there. But Pickett looks like he can run the offense. And the Bills have probably the best pass defense in the entire league. I mean, we're talking they've got no starting defensive backs out there, and it's really hard for guys to get open. The Bills haven't had a bad game on defense yet all year. So I think this is a tough game to really judge Pickett, but he looks like he can move the team. He looks like he knows the offense, and he's willing to sling it downfield. So I do like what Pickett can do, at least make these weapons a little bit more consistent. But Freiermuth was knocked out with a head injury later on in that game. But yeah, I think you're not starting Claypool, but I think Pickens has some upside. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, if he's going to see 11, 12, 13 targets every week, you're obviously starting him.
Yeah, Pickens would be my second guy in among these Steelers wideouts because we've seen enough of Chase Claypool to know that he doesn't feel like doing everything as well as he needs to maximize his talent. And we like that. Heading in, we heard Steelers coaches were encouraging Kenny Pickett to throw the ball downfield. That can only be good news for George Pickens going forward. And as you said, the matchup is not going to get much worse than Buffalo your first time out. So we like the yardage, like the targets going around, like the confidence in the new quarterback. There will be usable games from these Pittsburgh receivers going forward. Chargers 30, Browns 28. And the next one, another huge game for Austin Ekeler, another 2 touchdowns here. Obviously, we can't expect 5 touchdowns every 2 games from Austin Ekeler, but the usage was good. Clearly led the backfield in rushing, monster yardage on his team leading rushing attempts, did plenty in the passing game, scored there as well. 15 more total snaps than Joshua Kelly, just 5 more routes. So I'd like to see more separation versus Joshua Kelly than that, but it's tough to complain when Austin Ekeler's coming off a 16 carry 4 target game.
Yeah, he was so good. He was excellent. He was our RB1 with 36 PPR points. On not even, like you said, he didn't even have that many touches. He also got sniped by Kelly at the goal line, or like the 4 or 5 yard line and a touchdown. He also got dragged down on like a 70-yard run. Ekeler did at like the 3. Of course, they can't get it in there either. But yeah, no, Ekeler was awesome. And again, with a guy that's, if I'm an Ekeler owner, I don't want him with 25 to 30 touches. I want him right in that little like 18 sweet spot there, maybe 13, 14 carries, 4 or 5 targets. That's where I want him, so that he can hopefully stay healthy. But Kelly looked good too. I mean, they got him involved. He was good in the passing game. He was good running the ball. So they were, I think, kind of matching the Browns tit for tat there with your run game versus my run game. But yeah, Ekeler's a beast.
And Sony Michel only played 2 snaps in the game. So Joshua Kelly is the handcuff guy to own right now if you're looking to have one of them. We would like to see Austin Ekeler getting a larger share of the routes, a larger share of the goal line stuff. But I don't think it's quite to the point where you can say he's a sell high, because how many running backs can we really trust to get that many opportunities and be in that strong an offense?
Right, exactly.
On the Brown side, David Njoku, 3 straight games now with 5+ catches and over 70 receiving yards. So he's become somebody we can go ahead and start every week at a position that just doesn't have that many such guys. The running back opportunities, Nick Chubb, 18, Kareem Hunt, 14, more of what we've come to expect between those guys. And then a rebound game for Amari Cooper. So Adam, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of new from the Browns offense, just kind of affirmation of what we already thought of the key guys.
Exactly. That's what I had in my notes. Like Chubb was Chubb and Hunt was Hunt. Like they were good. They were doing their things. It's nice to see Amari Cooper. The guy kind of has been lost in the shuffle the last couple of years, injuries, all this type of stuff. He was wide receiver 10 yesterday, had 12 targets. Good for him. But the Browns offense looks good. Looks fine. When they get Deshaun Watson back later in the year, I mean, Brissett threw a horrific interception late in that game when all they had to kind of do, I mean, scoring a touchdown would have been great, but all they really do is kind of run the clock down and kick a field goal. And then, Then the Chargers try to give it back by going for it on 4th and 2 at their own like 45-yard line with a minute left. Like, what are these guys doing? But yeah, no, there's not much else to say.
Mm-hmm. Texans 13, Jaguars 6, and there's not a whole lot to say about this game either because of how crappy Jacksonville was. So I said last week that I was throwing out the results from that game at Philly because it was rainy and there were a goofy number of turnovers, but it's now definitely time to throw it back in because the Jaguars got another 2 interceptions from Trevor Lawrence in this game against Houston. 286 passing yards seem like it's good, and you could say it was just unlucky to throw a couple picks, but that's 6.1 yards per attempt. He attempted 47 passes, so that's not a great passing day overall. I headed into this past week thinking that Trevor Lawrence would be fine and the Philly game would look like an outlier. Now I have to adjust that and consider him outside the top 12 until he proves otherwise.
Yeah, he should have. This was a smash spot. I mean, kind of. You thought that the only reason he wouldn't smash is if they were up by so much that they were just running the ball a bunch. But yeah, he wasn't great for sure. I'd like to see them kind of get him out running more, get him outside the pocket, but it just didn't happen there. And we finished, quarterback 20 on the week, which is not great at all. Because I definitely started him too. But yeah, the offense, when they're not running the ball great, the offense is struggling for sure. Christian Kirk had another dud. I was just Evan Ingram live a little bit here, right? 42 routes run, 10 targets. That's always nice to see. He probably had his best fantasy day today, but yeah, the offense has been struggling the last couple weeks.
Yeah, just 3 targets for Christian Kirk. He did still lead the wide receivers in playing time. So not a real concern there. I think it's just going to be a wide receiver core that's not clearly tiered every week. It's going to be Christian Kirk more often than it's not, but it's not like an every week Christian Kirk kind of thing. 11 targets for Marvin Jones in this one, 8 targets for Zay Jones in his return. So, things kept getting spread around. Those guys are the top 4 in playing time. So we should expect them to be the leaders and, just know that it's going to fluctuate at times given in a given week. On the Houston side, the offense went run heavy, 31 rushes versus 25 dropbacks, thanks to a close game throughout 6-6 until they scored a touchdown in the 4th quarter to take over. 26 carries, 99 yards on the ground for Dameon Pierce. So, I mean, my concern for him heading into the season was even if he leads the backfield, I don't know that the team is going to rely too heavily on a guy who was never the guy in a college backfield. Clearly, the Texans are like, Dameon Pierce is much better than any other running back we have. We're going to give him the ball as much as we can. Maybe that wears him down late in the season, but for now, we can ride it.
Yeah, I mean, he looks so good. The only thing I don't like about the way his running style is, I feel like he's going to get hurt. He's crushing people. He's running them over. He's jumping. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy's about to get his arm ripped off or something. But for now, hey, we'll ride him. 26 carries for 99 yards. He didn't average 4 yards a carry. Jaguars have a solid defense. 5 targets though. I mean, he's a workhorse. He's a must start every single week. If in negative game strips, he's good against even against teams that they're supposed to lose to. I mean, they're supposed to lose to every team that they play. So, so don't rely on that. But yeah, Pierce looks awesome. Burkhead saw less targets than Pierce, so you'd love to see that. If you're a Pierce owner, Burke had 3 targets, Pierce had 5. So yeah, Pierce is a stud. They love him. Keep riding the hot hand.
And running more routes than Burkhead. So it's not just a fluky thing. He's getting more work in the receiving game. So yeah, that'll help him across game scripts going forward. And looking at the matchups the rest of the way, I think there are really just 3 potentially really bad spots. And any game can turn into something different. But looking at it now, we got week 9 against Philly. That's probably going to be a mismatch based on the way the Eagles are playing. Week 14 at Dallas. That defense has been tough. The offense should have had Dak Prescott back for a long time by that point. So that could be a lopsided game. And then Kansas City in week 15 has that potential as well. Otherwise, I don't look at games and think, well, Houston's going to be way out of this one, and that could affect the amount of work that Dameon Pierce gets. So he looks good for now. I will say that given the offense is not good, that hurts his ultimate ceiling, not in an individual game kind of thing, but the rest of the way. If he operates as a workhorse in this offense the rest of the way, there are going to be games where he's just limited because there's not enough else on offense. And there is the chance that he gets run down because he was never a 200 carry guy in college. So there is still some sell potential on Pierce. He's absolutely not the kind of player, though, that you just like, I need to get rid of him for whatever now before it implodes. More of like, I'm doing pretty well at running back. I really could use something at receiver. Pierce is the guy that you can move for that kind of help.
Yeah, and you could probably do it too. I mean, most people, I mean, I guess towards the end there, people were taking him in the 5th round, but a lot of like early Pierce drafters, you were able to get him in the 9th, 10th, 11th, later than that. So he's probably your 3rd or 4th running back, and you could probably do with trading him if you need receiver help.
Mm-hmm. Vikings 29, Bears 22. On the Bears side, we had David Montgomery come back from his injury, reclaimed control of this backfield. Khalil Herbert barely made a peep in the game. So David Montgomery is the guy we're using going forward. Khalil Herbert remains rosterable, but it doesn't look like we can use him as long as David Montgomery is healthy. And then, like, maybe the bigger note for the Bears is that Justin Fields' life wasn't terrible for him yesterday. 15 of 21 passing, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. A full-on Daniel Jones performance in this one. Only took 2 sacks, though, which is probably the most surprising thing of all.
Yeah, right. He looked good. Some deeper dropbacks, looking down the field, pushing the ball down the field. Again, another team with no weapons for him to really work with. But he was running well. He had a long run. I think it was 20 yards or so, called back for a holding, which would have added to his fantasy appeal there. But yeah, they were in the game. They probably would have won that game if it wasn't for the fumble there at the end. So, but yeah, nice to see Fields put up a pseudo startable week.
Yeah, not quite usable for fantasy yet. Not supporting any pass catchers to help us, but let's take a positive where we can with this pass offense. On the Vikings side, Dalvin Cook, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. So absolutely nobody's complaining about that. But it is worth noting that he ceded receiving work again to Alexander Mattison. It's 2 straight weeks that he's done so. And this time he actually ran fewer pass routes than Mattison. Now, maybe that is the team helping Dalvin Cook deal with the shoulder injury from a couple weeks ago. Maybe that's something that changes as he gets further removed from it. We'll have to watch for reports on the shoulder. Maybe the shoulder is just something he's going to be dealing with all year. But, that's an aspect to watch, especially for when they get into less favorable rushing situations.
Yeah, I agree. And again, in this day and age, man, keep these. You don't want 30 touches, or 30 touches plus targets for a running back. So they're not going to last, 2 targets. You want more than that. 18 carries, great. 16 and 4 would be awesome because targets are worth more. But fine, he gets through the game. He scores once or twice. So yeah, I mean, as long as it's to keep Dalvin Cook fresh, he's going to be cooking there. Kirk Cousins starts the game at 18 of 18, which is just unbelievable. Looks locked in. Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown late in that game. Scored one on the first drive or second drive, but he was called down because referees hate fun and hate fantasy points. They look back, maybe his shin grazed. It's like whatever, and then Cook vultures the touchdown. But yeah, no, they were the normal cast of characters were doing their thing in that game, and Jefferson is unstoppable when they want to force it to him. But yeah, it was just crazy for Cousins to start the game 18 of 18, and then they're losing in the 4th quarter of that game, which is just wild.
Jefferson also the highest rated passer among Vikings in this game.
Yeah, there you go.
1 completion for 23 yards to Dalvin Cook.
What a throw.
A guy can do anything. All right. I don't have anything else from that game. What about you?
No, the only thing I had was late in the game, David Montgomery had an amazing play. It was like 2nd and 19 with like the game on the line. He catches like a 5-yard pass and somehow gets the first down. And he was going to be the hero of the day until that fumble or the strip on the very, very next play. But Montgomery looked like he had a little juice to him.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's never going to be a great player, but he's, certainly a good player. And that's why, that's worth knowing for if you're hoping Khalil Herbert is going to become a standalone value on his own. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No. David Montgomery is not a superstar, but he's good enough, and he's always going to be a coach's favorite.
Yep.
Patriots 29, Lions 0. It turns out that this Lions offense is not a world beater, despite what we had been led to believe. Damian Harris on the Patriots side, hamstring injury. So we're going to have to watch that. But obviously, those are the kind of things that can be nagging and recurring. It's huge if you're a Ramondre Stevenson manager. Stevenson is usable, obviously, going forward. We already considered these guys usable. Stevenson's going to be an every week starter if Damian Harris misses further time. So I'll have to watch where that goes. And then Jacoby Myers was the other emergent guy yesterday. He's all the way back from his injury, or at least all the way back enough that he can be their only usable receiver again. And apparently Jacoby Myers does not care who's playing quarterback for him.
Right. I mean, Jacoby Myers, if he's going to play like that and get those type of, he got 8 targets on 21 routes run. I mean, he scored a nice touchdown. He's startable if that's what if this is how they're going to use him, and they're going to make him. I mean, the receiver with the next most targets after him was Tyquan Thornton with 3. Now, again, they just ran. This was a boring game. Both teams were just running the ball, running game and defense. So there's not going to be games where both teams where the Patriots are going to be able to run like that. But that'll be even better for Jacoby Myers. We'll see more targets. So yeah, Jacoby Myers is startable for sure. Stevenson looks really good. He was the best running back on that team, regardless. And so, is Ty Montgomery coming back soon? Is he done? Like, I feel like he was in the 4-week IR, and I think he might be eligible to come off soon, which would be maybe bad for the routes or for the targets for Stevenson moving forward if Damian Harris is out. But Stevenson will still get his, and I think he's obviously an RB2 moving forward. But as far as the Lions go, I mean, Belichick has Goff's number all the way back to the Super Bowl. Like, Goff can't do much with Belichick's defense, but they also had no Swift or Chark.
I think Jared Goff's number is publicly listed, by the
way. Well, listen, he's had a good year, and he's had some good years. Even in his best years, Belichick has had his number. So, but I'm on Ron on a pitch count too. So this was not the Lions' best offense as far as personnel. But yeah, just a forgettable game for them.
Yeah. Belichick, by the way, says he does not expect Ty Montgomery back to practice this week. He is eligible to come off IR. So we'll see beyond that. Certainly fire up Stevenson for week 6, and we'll see about Damian Harris's status. In the running game on the other side, Jamal Williams remained the lead carry guy, but he fell to 3rd among Lions running backs in pass routes, 17-5 in favor of Craig Reynolds in that category. And then Justin Jackson even ran one more route than Williams. That would be a bigger concern if we weren't now heading into a week 6 bye, on the other side of which DeAndre Swift is expected to be back. So, we knew that Jamal Williams was a short-term fix. We knew that he was not a given to dominate in any given week. So this is one of those blips that I think ultimately doesn't have much long-term impact, but we should keep it in mind for the next time DeAndre Swift goes down, because that's probably going to happen again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, nothing to really worry about. I mean, like you said, they're going into a bye week. Swift will be back after the bye week, and it'll be kind of back to normal the way it was before he went down.
And as you mentioned, Amon-Ra St. Brown returned from his ankle injury, but less than half of his usual playing time, was 4th among Lions wideouts in playing time, trailing Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Tom Kennedy. He was targeted, though, on 37.5% of his routes. So clearly, when St. Brown is on the field, they're like, we got to try to get him the ball.
Yeah, exactly. He's still got that massive target share. So at least they tried to get him involved, unlike T. Higgins. We're gonna do a little shot game this morning. Every time we scream about T. Higgins, we're gonna to take a shot. But yeah, it was at least they got him involved a little bit to get some fantasy output.
Seahawks lost to the Saints 39-32 in a total Taysom Hill game, and this is one of those where I kind of hate the Taysom Hill impact. I love it right now because we were all deciding on who to play in a flex spot on one of our main event teams yesterday. And it was Taysom Hill over like Alexander Madison in an ugly situation. And yeah, I mean, you and I both leaned Taysom Hill there. It was a pretty easy call because it's like nobody here has upside. So let's take Taysom Hill. 9 carries for 112 yards and 3 touchdowns. A 22-yard touchdown pass on his only pass attempt of the season so far. And that's this guy just defies logic or projection or anything. He's allegedly a tight end, but he has 1 target for the entire season back in week 1. Before this game, he had 4, 3, and 5 carries in his previous 3 appearances. So like every week, I think I'm probably going to get questions like, should I pick up Taysom Hill? Should I bid on Taysom Hill? Should I start Taysom Hill? The logical answer is no, because the way that he's getting used should not be producing fantasy points. But the way that he has always been used and performed defies logic. So you just can't use the same system for deciding whether to play Taysom Hill. So my answer to anybody who's wondering if you should pick up Taysom Hill or use him is like, yeah, if you feel like it. You got to realize that there are going to be games where he touches the ball once or twice. There are going to be games he does absolutely nothing. And then there's going to be another game where he has one carry for 78 yards and a touchdown. There's no pattern whatsoever. So you're going to have to decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah, I am the owner on the so Jared smolla sends us a screenshot of, hey, we need to pick one of these guys to start. Like half of them weren't even active. It's like, all right, well, I guess we'll go to Taysom Hill. But I think having Andy Dalton be there as the starter was kind of what made it much easier of a selection. Like I think when Jameis Winston's healthy, I don't think Taysom Hill gets the type of work. Like that's why it was kind of exciting yesterday, because he could play some quarterback because Andy Dalton stinks. And he could play running back and he played receiver. I mean, it sucks for Kamara. Like you said, he's a tight end. In tight end premium scoring, he was the number one tight end on the week, and he didn't catch a pass. So it was like, oh, we'll take it. We'll take it. But they need to involve him more. I mean, he's such a weapon. Why would you not? I mean, look what he can do. Like Jameis Winston's fine, okay, with a healthy, like when you've got everybody healthy there, all the receivers healthy, all the running backs healthy, Taysom Hill would probably get less work. But when you don't, it's like, man, look what he did. Look what he did. So he needs to be more involved for sure. But again, from a fantasy perspective, even if he gets 8 touches, are you going to start him with and 8 touches? Like, no, you're not. If you started him this week, you got lucky, but at least the thought process was there behind why you started him.
He did play. He played a season high snap total and snap share against the Seahawks. Obviously, I mean that's the other note is the Seahawks are awful on defense, so it's an upside matchup for everybody. His playing time though was pretty close to what he got in week 1. 16 snaps was 26% share in week 1. He played 23 snaps yesterday, but that was a 30% share, so pretty close there. Maybe we'll see that kind of usage going forward. He was 20% in week 4. I don't see why it would be different when Jameis Winston's in there instead of Andy Dalton. I mean, Jameis Winston can throw downfield better, but I think overall they're comparable in their level of quarterback competency. So I would think that they would use Taysom Hill a similar amount going forward, but we're all guessing. We'll all see. So that's the rub is, if you're going to ask, should I use Taysom Hill? My answer honestly is I have no idea. He could do absolutely nothing for you. He could score 2 touchdowns for you this Sunday.
Right. And another note for the team, Kamara looked explosive. He looked awesome. He got vultured by Taysom Hill a couple times for touchdowns, but he looks great moving forward. And Olave looked awesome too. They were really forcing the ball to him. Got a concussion on that touchdown. I'm surprised they called that a touchdown. I mean, that was I've seen much clearer touchdowns that they've called incomplete, but he'll probably miss a game. I would think he looked pretty bad there on that concussion, but he looks awesome when he's back and healthy. So kind of the usual suspects there as well.
Yeah, he's worked into being a 30+% target share guy. So Chris Olave is going to be startable once he's back. We should still probably assume the players are going to miss at least one game with a concussion. We'll obviously watch his progress because that has not been a given even over the past couple weeks since the Tua Tagovailoa situation. Alvin Kamara, it's definitely a positive for him, even though we would like to have seen some of those Taysom Hill touchdowns go his way. He came back for 23 carries versus 9 for Mark Ingram. He had a team high tying 6 targets in this game. Of course, he caught all 6 of them for 91 yards against the garbage Seahawks, but we love the usage. So we comfortably start Alvin Kamara going forward. The tight ends are worth noting, the actual tight ends. Adam Troutman just about even with Juwan Johnson in offensive roles at this point. There was still a slight edge for Juwan Johnson in routes the past 2 weeks. Adam Troutman ahead in total snaps and even in targets, and that really means that we just can't use either guy in nearly all fantasy situations.
Yeah, no, both are unstartable. They didn't even want to really get him involved. So you got to look elsewhere.
Geno Smith. I would have thought that we would have to look elsewhere. I mean, so here's the thing on Geno Smith. Even Pete Carroll, you could tell by his quotes about the QB battle heading into the season, did not want Geno Smith to win it. He kept saying Geno Smith is still ahead, but every time he talked about it, he was like, I think Drew Lock just needs time. He needs experience. and it's not coming to fruition. Geno Smith has been excellent. 75% completions this year, 2+ touchdown passes in 4 of his 5 games. He's got a 5.4% touchdown rate in his time with the Seahawks. So we did see a little bit of it last year. It was easy to say that's a small sample. We can't really glean much from that, but he was high in touchdowns there. He was low in interceptions there. That has continued so far this season. Both of those numbers still much worse for his career. So, maybe we're still in small sample territory, but we at least have to entertain the possibility that Geno Smith is just like older now, smarter with the football, wiser in his decisions, and he's also clearly working with the best pair of receivers that he has at any point in his career. Having Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf is definitely going to help any quarterback.
Yeah, he looked awesome. And it's not even like the decision making that impressed me yesterday. He was making throws on the run. He would roll to his left, flip his hips, and threw a dime down the sidelines. Like he's never looked at this good. He looked really, really good. And even his mechanics look a little different. Like the way he's throwing his deep balls. Aaron Rodgers kind of has like that jump when he throws the deep ball. Geno did that a couple times where he had a little jump. I wonder if he worked in the offseason on the mechanics, but he looks really, really good. 40-yard touchdown to Lockett, 35-yard touchdown to Lockett. Both of them were dimes, So having these great weapons, having a good run game, like a threat of now the old line isn't great, but the threat of the run has been great. RIP Rashad Penny again, but Kenneth Walker looks explosive. So the Seahawks offense is looking good.
I appreciate the QB mechanics breakdown from local indoor football quarterback legend Adam Krautworth.
Indoor outdoor. Okay, it's indoor outdoor.
I didn't mean to limit you.
Come on.
I don't know as much about the outdoor portion of the career. Geno Smith, it's definitely time to start giving him credit and start considering him much more strongly as an option. And over the next 4 games, he's got 2 matchups with the Cardinals, which have upside. They're at the Chargers in week 7, which we would have thought would be a downside matchup, but the Chargers have not punished opposing quarterbacks to this point. So we should consider Geno Smith usable there. And then the Giants in week 8, we got a revenge game storyline there, Adam.
That's right. He's more than usable for sure, especially because their defense stinks, right? So he's going to be in shootouts probably. So I would say rushing upside, but he only ran the ball once. So I don't think he necessarily has that, but he looks good. And compared to, guys like Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones and Brissett, like you're definitely starting to move over guys like that.
Yeah, why bother scrambling when you've all of a sudden turned into Drew Brees? You mentioned Rashad Penny's done for the year, broke his leg in that game, unfortunately. Kenneth Walker promptly ran for a 69-yard touchdown. So, I mean, he's going to be somebody that we're more likely to start going forward. We'll see exactly where he settles in the rankings because this hasn't been a great situation for running backs. Rashad Penny is, last week, not this past Sunday, but the Detroit game before, made it look better than it really is, but it hasn't been an awesome situation for running back work. So we'll evaluate how many touches we can expect for Kenneth Walker in a given week, but it certainly is a huge step for Penny to be out of the way to help Kenneth Walker absorb more of whatever the backfield allows him to get.
Exactly. I think I would be kind of excited to start Walker with the offense looking good now. And if he can just get like half of what Penny's leaving behind and all of what he was doing, I think he'll be fine. He was forget, like he gets lost in the shuffle of the preseason. He's on the Seahawks, who we all thought stunk, and the line stinks, and Rashad Penny's there. He was an amazing college running back. Oh, he can't block. He can't put the ball in his gut and let him run. He's a really good running back. So let's see how this pans out. Stuff like this tends to generally work out in the running back's favor. So we'll see if Walker can be an RB2 the rest of the way.
It's a good day if you had Kenneth Walker stashed on your roster. Yes. And if he's available in any leagues, he should be 100% owned after this week's waiver runs. Jets 40, Dolphins 17, a surprising result. I guess, losing Teddy Bridgewater after 1 snap to a concussion and elbow injury will help there. It makes it tough to evaluate anything in the Miami passing game. Obviously, we have to watch the foot injury for Tyreek Hill, but otherwise we're just going to have to watch and see what quarterback is healthy and when. So the bigger note here, I think, is Raheem Mostert dominating backfield work in this game. And not only that, Myles Gaskin moved ahead of Chase Edmonds in usage in this contest. So Raheem Mostert looks like the guy going forward, and Chase Edmonds looks droppable to me.
Yeah, I know, man. Like, I would say yes, Edmonds is droppable, but if I saw Edmonds on the waiver wire, I'd be scooping him up. You know what I mean? Because we'd be playing the other side of this coin. Right? Like, Mostert's going to get hurt. I wouldn't drop Edmonds because Mostert gets hurt every single year. But for now, I definitely wouldn't start him, and I would definitely be starting Mostert's almost a must start, especially once Tua gets back and the offense gets back to where it was before. So yeah, Mostert's the guy. He looks good. You know, he was a former San Francisco guy coming over with the head coach. So definitely don't hesitate to start Mostert moving forward.
Yeah, I always hesitate to make blanket statements like drop this guy, pick up this guy, because there are leagues of varying sizes, varying roster setups, varying levels of seriousness. So I do not consider Chase Edmonds somebody that you have to get rid of now for whatever is out there. I'm not dropping him for Caleb Huntley this week, for example. But if you're sitting there this week like, I don't know who to drop from this roster to pick up somebody that's actually going to help you, I think Chase Edmonds is somebody that you can certainly consider droppable.
Yeah, exactly. My rule of thumb is never drop a running back and always add running backs because they are always getting hurt. I mean, Tevin Coleman was RB8 this week. Like, it's just so stupid. And he's an injury. He's a sprained ankle away from being the starter in San Francisco next week. It's crazy. So yeah, I would hate to ever drop a running back that is an NFL. You can drop Zach Moss because he stinks, but like other than that, every other running back is capable when given the opportunity.
Breece Hall is definitely capable.
Yes.
It's annoying that Michael Carter vultured 2 touchdowns from him yesterday, but Breece Hall worked as the clear leader in the backfield at this point, which is all we ever wanted. We got also more carries of Breece Hall near the goal line than Michael Carter on the season to date. So you look at yesterday's game and you're like, yeah, but what if Michael Carter is stealing touchdowns from him? It would be insane even for the Jets to say, yeah, Breece Hall is going to be our starter, but we're going to go with the smaller guy more often near the goal line. So that's not going to be how it works. The way it's going to work is Michael Carter is still involved enough that he's going to be annoying at times. It's going to be, I don't want to say Jamal Williams because he's bigger, so he could be the goal line vulture versus DeAndre Swift, but it's going to be that level of where they're sharing, where it's Joshua Kelly, I guess, probably versus Austin Ekeler. So it's going to be annoying, but Breece Hall is clearly the backfield leader. He is a starter for sure, weekly going forward.
Yeah, so much from Michael Carter being the life breath of the offense, like the coach said, like before the season started. And one of those vulture touchdowns was like a 60-yard catch and run by Breece Hall, where they probably thought he's an elite athlete. He's probably winded after one 60-yard run. So now we have to pull him out and put in Michael Carter. But you see that happen all the time where a running back will go for a long, huge gain and then they sub him out. So that's all that was. That's why that one got vultured. But Breece Hall's a stud. We've been saying this since the preseason. He was the number 1 running back drafted. Great college player profile. The best running back on the team. And if Carter ever misses a week due to injury, Hall's going to be RB1. So yeah, it's super exciting to see Hall finally get going here.
Tough to really glean much from the passing game in this one. Zach Wilson only attempted 21 throws. All of the top 3 wideouts got 4 targets. 3 other guys got 2 targets. So not a whole lot to take away from that. I'm trying not to use Jets wideouts if I can help it until I see a specific reason to. CJ Uzomah matched Tyler Conklin in playing time and ran 5 more routes in this game, which is terrible news for Tyler Conklin. It's not enough to say Uzomah is the guy or that they're even going forward, but this was already like a low floor, low ceiling situation. So Tyler Conklin's another one of those guys similar to Chase Edmonds that is droppable this week if you need the roster spot.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we knew he wasn't going to be tight end 3 forever. Uzomah was injured a couple of those weeks. So Uzomah's back. It's tight end by committee. Look elsewhere for your tight end work. And I'm super annoyed. You're going to be mad at me, but I'm super annoyed that Corey Davis is just hanging around, getting more routes run than Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, getting targets in the end. I mean, 3 targets apiece for the 3 receivers. It's so gross. But listen, Corey, you had your chance. You're a top 10 pick. You didn't pan out. Step aside and let the young bucks get running here.
Yeah, no matter if the coaches tell you to go out on the field or not,
step aside.
You're not getting paid a whole bunch of money to go out there and play football, you jerk.
Oh, so annoying.
I mean, this was always the argument for Corey Davis is they're paying him money. He is a former first-round pick. They're all going to be a lot closer in opportunities than anybody really wants them to be.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't a big Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson guy, but like once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, Garrett Wilson's awesome. And then the 3 targets, it's like, oh, what are we doing? Let's get Joe Flacco back out there.
Yeah, that's why this offense was always as long as you're not overpaying, it's fine to take a shot on any of these guys because they're all talented. But it's still the Jets and it's a crowded situation. Bucks 21, Falcons 15, a result I'm very happy about because I bet the Falcons +9 heading in. So I was worried when that score was sitting at 21-0. I was very happy to see Atlanta score points, but obviously the officials did their part by making sure that Tom Brady did not go down in a comeback victory.
I mean, since we've been on the podcast, I think they called 3 more roughing the passers on Tom Brady. What a horror. I didn't see it live, but then, everyone's tweeting about it. I go and look at that. I mean, listen, I'm a Bills fan, so I'm not, everyone's acting surprised. What are we doing here? This has been Tom Brady's life for 30 years. And he tries to trip the defensive lineman when he gets up. Brady trips the guy. It's like, oh, this is so stupid. But yeah, anyways, they pulled it out. It was an Uncle Lenny game, Uncle Lenny week, and it was an ugly game, but they pulled it out.
Jerome Boger's like, it's Tom Brady. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Falcons side, the backfield was led by Tyler Algier. Didn't dominate, but did lead 39 snaps to 17 for Avery Williams, 16 for Caleb Huntley. Routes, Algier led 19 to 8 for Williams, 6 for Huntley. Williams got the only 2 targets, but it was Algier running more routes than either of the other 2 guys. Algier led in carries, 13 versus 8 for Huntley, 3 for Williams. Williams got the only TD there. So I think Avery Williams comes away looking like a bigger piece than he really was. He primarily got the 2-minute drill type stuff for them. So that's similar to JD McKissick in Washington. I don't think it's going to get to the point of being a usable amount of touches for Avery Williams. It's going to be annoying for Tyler Algier, but this is not somebody that we were depending on for real fantasy value, especially in this matchup here. And again, for this coming week's matchup against San Francisco, I think Algier belongs on rosters in most cases, but if you were or are expecting big things, then you need to change your expectations.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who would be expecting big things. I mean, there's nothing really to see here. I mean, it's a 3-headed backfield with 3 below average running backs on a team that's not going to be running the ball a lot, because they're going to be behind most of the time. So, yeah, I would, like you said, rosterable, but certainly not startable.
And he will be usable because we talk about how bad the running back situation is.
That's true. Bye weeks and stuff. Sure. Yeah.
Like he's probably going to be consistently in the range of like RB 27 to 35 in our rankings. That's the kind of guy, right. It's at a level where you can use him. Maybe he'll get a lucky for a touchdown at some point. Maybe he will get the targets thrown his way if they're not in the 2-minute drill, but certainly not a great situation for a running back or anybody's upside really. So the next guy to talk about is Drake London. There was a slight limitation on his playing time. He still led the Falcons in targets as he has been consistently, but Drake London had his lowest snap rate of the year in this game. He trailed Olamide Zaccheaus in routes. It's tough to know how much is the knee injury. I don't know exactly when he left this game in the 4th quarter. I know he came away with a knee injury. It sounds like he didn't even go into the injury tent. So I don't know if it really was a factor here. I think the biggest factor is that Arthur Smith seems bent on making sure that he doesn't maximize the physical skills of anybody in his offense.
He's elite at doing that. They open up the game. There's an 8-yard out route, easiest pitch and catch you ever saw to Anthony Ferkser. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, so easy. It looked like Dalton Schultz, just plodding along for 8 yards. Like, why don't we just do it? Or like, all these tight ends just get these easy. Tyler Higbee's another one. Just 5-yard out after 5-yard out. It's 3 points every time they catch it into tight end premium. It's like, oh my gosh, why can't we do that with Kyle Pitts? Because maybe he'll break one and to take it 80 yards. So, anyways, but yeah, he loves not using his players. Now, London did have a 25-yard catch called back on a holding penalty early on in that game too. So he did lose a little bit there. But yeah, I don't know if there's an injury involved. I don't know if he tries to like hide his best players and use them, at certain times. I don't know what he's doing, but I fired him 4 weeks ago. So I don't even know how he's still out there coaching.
Yeah, I mean, Drake London's going to keep being somebody that we can use, going to keep being somebody that frustrates us because Atlanta's just going to be a frustrating offense. I mean, if there's a coach that can't maximize Kyle Pitts right now, then you just trust him to not maximize anyone else. Drake London, is worth noting that through the 17 years of Pro Football Focus data, he is the only rookie wide receiver with 30 plus targets and a receiving grade above 80. So that's, or through the first 4 weeks of the season. So that's why Drake London, somebody you say, yeah, I know he let me down last week, but I'm going to go ahead and plug him in this week. Obviously, it depends on who you're comparing him to, but we will elevate him above what the situation dictates because of how well Drake London's playing so far.
Yep.
On the Bucs side, they're up to a 67-33 pass run split for the season. I would expect the pass run split to not be quite as drastic as the past 2 weeks, especially last week against the Chiefs, but they've been the most pass heavy team, overall, not just looking at neutral situations over the past couple of years. So I would expect that to continue. You mentioned a big day for Leonard Fournette. That overshadowed that there was still a good bit of playing time for Rachaad White, who was closer in total snaps and routes to Fournette than certainly the carries and targets would tell you, but also versus the first 3 weeks of the season. He was a lot closer to what last week's usage was.
Yeah, I think what you're saying out of Rachaad White is just that Brady's starting to trust him, the team's starting to trust him, and that's what you wanted to see when you took Rachaad White as like Leonard Fournette's handcuff. Right, he's still just a handcuff right now. He's an elite handcuff, but I think he finished like RB39 in the week. Like he's not really startable outside of an injury to Lenny. So, but still, roster him. Be ready for when Leonard Fournette misses a game, because this shows you they're willing to use him in the passing game. And they're going to run the ball. So if Fournette goes down, Rachaad White will be a plug and play.
Yes, should be rostered everywhere that's possible because of that reason, but not going to be a true standalone option when Fournette's healthy. And the passing volume, of course, is just going to help everybody available, as Cade Otton's usable week 5 showed you yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Cade Otton, man. I had so many, I have so many Kyle Pitts teams. Cade Otton was on my radar for guys I should pick up and start, but he didn't make the cut.
7 targets yesterday. Did have a usable PPR game. So
absolutely.
Anybody
better than Kyle Pitts.
Right. Titans 21, Commanders 17. So here's what to like and dislike about Robert Woods. 32% target share against Washington. Solid 8 looks for the game. Caught 4 of them for 37 yards. So limited player at this point in his career. Very limited situation. The only Titan to crack 40 receiving yards in this game was Nick Westbrook-Akine, and it took a 61-yard catch to get him there.
Yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more of Robert Woods. I had him as like a sneaky starter here. I plugged him in for some receivers that were questionable. I didn't know if they were going to play, but a little disappointed. Thought with the Commanders' weak secondary, he could do a little bit more, but it was just another Derrick Henry week. So you really just want to avoid these guys if you can, avoid the passing game completely.
Dontrell Hilliard, second in targets with 5. Not sure how much we can do with that. He has seen 4+ targets in 3 of his 4 games, 31% playing time each of the past 2 weeks. So that's nudged up versus where he was in the opener, but still not a standalone player in most weeks. In most cases, he's taking some passing work away from Derrick Henry. We should expect that going forward. So, Dontrell Hilliard, somebody that's going to pop up every once in a while, not somebody we can use in most cases.
Yeah, a solid handcuff again. He gets a lot of the receiving work for them. Five targets, 17 routes run. So Hilliard's rosterable for sure. I'm interested to see though, because Haskin is more of the Derrick Henry mold when it comes to the running game. So I wonder if Henry went down, if Haskin would get a massive bump and Hilliard would stay as like the kind of the pass catching back. But we'll see. Hopefully Henry doesn't go down, but Hilliard is definitely rosterable.
Yeah, Hilliard would certainly get more carries if Derrick Henry went down, but I don't think that he's the direct replacement that Rachaad White is for Leonard Fournette in Tampa Bay. On the Washington side of this one, again, 5 games in a row now, Curtis Samuel led this team in targets. So he's somebody who should be in lineups pretty much every week. Fine usage and output for both him and Terry McLaurin in this game. They were overshadowed, of course, by De'Ami Brown stealing both touchdown passes from Carson Wentz, including a long one. He still worked 4th among wideouts, even with Jahan Dotson out. It was Cam Sims as the 3rd wideout. So De'Ami Brown's not anybody we should be picking up in any formats this week. Maybe Dynasty if he's available there, but it's Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin as the usable wideouts for Washington.
That was a sick catch though by De'Ami Brown, one-handed tutty. Oh, that was unbelievable. But yeah, no, you can't really start him week in and week out. McLaurin and Samuel, fine. Again, just another disappointing outing for Terry McLaurin. It looks like it's just not going to happen for him this year with all the different. They're spreading it around. I mean, he was a 4th, 5th round pick in fantasy draft, so it looks like he's kind of busting so far.
Brian Robinson might be busting out soon, but that's going to be a muted bust out in this offense. 3rd among Washington running backs in playing time in this game. 9 carries, though, to 3 for Antonio Gibson. So, of course, the Washington coaches are like, yes, there's somebody we can hand the ball to besides Antonio Gibson, who we hate. Gibson also trailed J.D. McKissic in total snaps and routes. So I hope that you really tried hard to trade Antonio Gibson before this week, because at this point, he's now just a handcuff in a bad running game.
Yep, that's what we're hoping. Gibson was okay for us for three weeks. I mean, after we knew Robinson was going to be out for a little bit, but now we're back to where we were before the season started, right? We're like, okay, it's going to be Brian Robinson's backfield eventually. Gibson's 13th round pick and a handcuff to Brian Robinson, and McKissick's getting all the passing work. So, yeah, I would think as soon as even next week, Brian Robinson would be the lead dog.
Yes, it's definitely coming soon. Antonio Gibson's playing time has fallen every single week this year, and only one of those included Brian Robinson. So it's there. It's been there in front of us. 49ers 37, Panthers 15, and another game that went exactly how we figured that it would. I wonder if we get addition by subtraction with Baker Mayfield hurting his left ankle to kind of help things along. But if he's out, it's going to be PJ Walker starting. So it's not like we DJ Moore holders can rejoice and expect big numbers.
Yes, we can. I mean, Baker Mayfield, they can't even – they're designing plays for DJ Moore, and the ball is getting spiked back into Baker Mayfield's face because he's 5'11". Like, PJ Walker might not be tall, but at least he can maneuver in the pocket and throw the ball. Like, anything is better than this for DJ Moore. I benched DJ Moore everywhere yesterday because I'm like, there's no way he can kill me. There's no way. His ceiling is like 16 points. Yep. And so, yeah, anything is better than Baker Mayfield for DJ Moore. Baker Mayfield belongs. He's a career backup from today moving forward. He stinks. So I would just, anything is better than that for put DJ Moore at running back or at quarterback for that matter. But at least he got 8 targets. At least he saw more than Shi Smith this week because they swapped numbers or something. So I always think it's DJ, and I'm always a little let down. But yeah, no, we need a little spark here moving forward. Christian McCaffrey was good again, 54 yards and a touchdown, 7 catches, 50 receiving yards. So not the ceiling that we're used to, but fine.
I did get asked on the Draft Sharks Discord this week, which, by the way, you're welcome to come join us on. I got asked if DJ Moore is droppable now. I can't say that he isn't. He's not somebody that I would be dropping for whatever at this point, but he's also not somebody that I can say, no, you can't drop him for that other guy this week because the breakout is coming. I have absolutely no reason to predict a breakout. He's somebody that I would rather hold on to in case things turn around with a different quarterback. But I mean, there's nobody spectacular that's walking through that particular door this season.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, folks. Okay. There's no Kevin McHale's not walking
Robert Parrish is not walking through that
Robert Parrish is not walking through that door. I mean, I don't know when, who knows how long Baker Mayfield's going to be out for, but it just doesn't look good.
Ever.
You know what? Firing the coach might be a kickstart because he is horrific.
Yes.
But I already fired him, so I'm not worried about it.
You know who is walking through that door is Jeff Wilson Jr. Continues to run the San Francisco backfield, 17 carries, 120 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground against the Panthers. And he even lost a short touchdown to Tevin Coleman, who had 8 carries of his own in that game. Coleman beat Jeff Wilson 3-2 in targets, but it was still Wilson leading in routes. So we don't have to worry too much about that aspect. We know the Niners are never going to just use one running back for everything. So have to be happy with Jeff Wilson's role. I have to be happy with the way they're performing and what's available to him. Deebo Samuel, quiet yardage day, but led the team with 9 targets and did manage a touchdown catch. So even in his crappiest of games, he's not going to leave you hanging as a fantasy manager.
Right. He definitely didn't look. Deebo didn't look himself, and the offense didn't look themselves. But yeah, Jeff Wilson's been such a nice little. You could start him every single week. RB2, kind of flex play. I think it was RB7 overall this week. So he's been fine. Which is why I don't understand why people were dropping Elijah Mitchell after the injury, because he's going to be back week 8, 9, or 10. And when he's back, I think they like him better than Jeff Wilson. And Jeff Wilson's RB17 on the season. Like, great, fine. You're starting him every week. And so when Elijah Mitchell comes back, if Mitchell's available on your waiver wire, go pick up Elijah Mitchell, because we'll be back eventually, week 9 or so. So go get him, because he could be a league winner down the stretch. But because the running game's just so good. I mean, like I said, Tevin Coleman was like an RB8 this week. It's just the offense is just ripe for running back production. Deebo only saw 2 carries. Like I said, I think he was a little bit banged up. I think he had like a right arm issue going on, but he wasn't himself, but he did score. Thank God. He also had a big drop over the middle of the field. He's wide open, and Jimmy stepped up and hit him on which could have been knowing Deebo, could have been a 50-yard touchdown, but he dropped it, which was pretty bad.
He might still be running right now if he had caught it.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that once everybody's back healthy, we're going to be looking at like 13, 14, 15 carries leading the backfield every week, but certainly a usable spot for everybody. I agree with stashing Elijah Mitchell if possible. Eagles 20-17 over the Cardinals. Eagles escaped with this one. We got Miles Sanders back to earth versus his usage in week 4, a career high 27 carries in that one. This one saw him get 15 carries, 3 targets. That's a good day, and that's what we should expect from him going forward. It'd be especially nice if we get those targets on a regular basis going forward. Somewhat limited passing day for the Eagles. Devontae Smith led the way with 11 targets, 9 for Dallas Goedert, 7 for A.J. Brown. It's not a change. That's just what's going to happen when you have 3 talented targets leading this pass catching core.
Yeah, and that was one of my concerns going into the year, was kind of being down on a lot of the Eagles, just because of the quarterback that's kind of a run first QB, at least heading into the year, and all the different weapons. I mean, Goddard had a great take, but yeah, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, it was like a Devonta Smith week, right? 11 targets to 6 for AJ Brown. You just never know what week who it's going to be. Miles Sanders is the guy in my life where I never start him on the right week. So I'm always he's like almost like a Amari Cooper to me, where you gotta like start him every week and just take the duds, because I didn't start him last week and he smashed, and this week I started him and he was not, Jalen Hurts, 2 rushing touchdowns from the half-yard line. And I don't, it's competent coaching. I'm not mad about it, because I would do the same thing if I had the ball at the half-yard line. Why am I turning around to hand it to Miles Sanders when I can fall forward with a very athletic quarterback? So I get it, but that's the knock on Miles Sanders, is he doesn't really break long ones. At least he hasn't in 3 years, and he's sharing the goal line work with an athletic quarterback. So it's just going to be tough with Miles. I mean, this is a game. The Cardinals defense is terrible. You would have thought one of these guys could have smashed. And in the end, it was just Jalen Hurts with the rushing scores.
I just had to go check, because there's one league where I have Miles Sanders and Jeff Wilson, and last week I started Jeff Wilson over Miles Sanders, and this week I just checked to make sure, and I definitely did start Miles Sanders over Jeff Wilson. So
of course,
making sure. I'm trying to keep the streak alive of getting that absolutely wrong every single week. On the Cardinal side of this one, we had 10 targets apiece for Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz. That's what we expected. 8 targets for Rondale Moore, caught 7 for 68 yards. No other Cardinal drew more than 5 targets, and he was near even with Marquise Brown in playing time, ahead of number 3, AJ Green. So we like that he has immediately taken on that kind of full-time role. There was barely any Greg Dortch yesterday, just 2 total snaps. We got one more game now before DeAndre Hopkins is eligible to return, and then we finally get the full picture of what this Cardinals passing game will look like. The only thing I know of for sure that we can rely on here is that Cliff Kingsbury is going to fail to maximize it.
Yeah, he's another clown show. Kyler Murray only 3 carries, and that's what's killing me with Murray. Like I never thought he was going to be some uber efficient passer or anything like that. Like you said, Hopkins and really why I was high on Murray is because the second half of the year, whenever everybody's back, I mean, Rondale Moore looks explosive. Marquise Brown's been great this year. He looks really good. He's made some unbelievable plays. You know, he had his touchdown catch yesterday was insane. Caught a little slant over the middle, made like 2 guys miss, and scored right up the middle of the field. It was really good. So the weapons are there. They got to get Kyler Murray running more. I mean, he only had 3 carries, and like I think 2 of them were on their last drive of the game. So I don't really know what's going on there. They're just out of sync, like you said. It is the coaching, but hopefully when they get Hopkins back and their full array of weapons, that they should be clicking on all cylinders.
Breaking news, by the way, Matt Rule did just get fired by the Panthers. So clearly Carolina
I fired
is
him.
watching
It worked.
It worked. You need to talk more about Arthur Smith the rest of the show. But yeah, so Matt Rule's gone. His defensive coordinator Steve Wilks takes over. Wilks, I think he had 1 year coaching the Cardinals right before.
I think he did. Yep.
So, you know, we'll see what the difference is there, but getting Matt Rule out cannot be a bad thing because he has not seemed like a good fit at any point.
I feel so bad. Like, what if someone was doing a podcast about my job and they're like, Adam Kraus got fired today. Yes, Adam got fired. I don't want to celebrate it, but it's good for DJ Moore. That's all I'm going to say. It can't be bad. It can't be bad.
Yes, it cannot be bad for the fantasy outlook in Carolina. Getting back to Arizona, we had a rib injury to James Conner, knocking him out of yesterday's game. Darrell Williams also left that game with a knee injury. So, Benjamin finished up as the backfield against Philly. If those 2 guys remain out, we could have Eno Benjamin as workhorse for week 6 against that Seattle defense that basically lets you do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there.
So, Benjamin's a pickup this week, and we'll see how things sort out with the other 2 running backs. On to the Cowboys 22-10 takedown of the Rams yesterday. And Adam, the Rams offense is broken. Cooper Kupp is obviously a god. Tyler Higbee is one of 3 survivors in the tight end apocalypse. And Sean McVay is actively trying to keep his backfield from being usable in fantasy leagues.
They look so, like you said, they just look so bad. Now they faced a couple really tough defenses, but still they just look, they don't know what to do, right? They're throwing weird kind of routes to they don't even still know how to use Allen Robinson. By the way, they signed him to a 3-year deal. Like, and I refuse to believe that a guy who's made the Pro Bowl consecutive multiple times with the worst quarterback play you could ever have just got bad at 28 years old coming to LA. I won't buy it. So there's something, the offense in and of itself, it's not like the offense is smashing and Robinson isn't involved. It's all broken. So they got to figure out what's going on here. I mean, right now, Robinson's now falling behind Bennett Skowronek is in the backfield, or sorry, in the receiving core here. So we'll see. They got to get something going. Cooper Kupp's obviously an absolute stud week in, week out. Higbee, absolute stud. I'm starting Tyler Higbee in like the flex for non-PPR. I'm sorry, for non-tight end premium leagues, because he just 10 plus targets every single week. So continue to start him with confidence. But yeah, the backfield's a mess. Darrell Henderson gets 0 carries. Cam Akers gets 13 carries and 1 target. It's just a mess. And they're not moving the ball down inside the 5 where they can get touchdowns. So I don't know. Hopefully they'll end up figuring out, or knowing McVay, they'll just trade for a stud that comes in and fixes the whole thing. But I don't think they have any picks left.
Yeah, it'd be different if things were working and we were just frustrated, but it's not working right now. So that's probably the good thing, is that there's no incentive for Sean McVay to stop tinkering. There should be incentive for him to figure out how to get all these talented pieces working together. I think it's probably most frustrating for the backfield, because it should be a situation that gives us at least usable fantasy value, most of the time. But we got 13 carries from Akers. We got 1 target from him. We got no carries from Henderson, 5 targets from him. Like I've seen Brandon Gibson run the ball more often than Darrell Henderson, I think, in the Rams games that I've watched. We had Henderson lead Akers 25-5 in routes. So, it's a backfield where you don't want to use either guy. and we'll just see where the offense goes. Dallas's offense, they want to use it as little as possible. So, I mean, it's CeeDee Lamb is the guy we know we can start, because even when Dallas only attempts 16 passes, he's got 8 targets, a 50% target share in this game, only caught 5 balls for 53 yards. But I mean, we'll take that when your offense throws the ball 16 times. Tony Pollard made himself known yesterday with a 57-yard touchdown run, but otherwise he had just 7 carries for 29 yards, 4 routes among the 19 dropbacks. So it's Tony Pollard is not somebody that you can start. He's somebody who you can get mad about when he scores a touchdown on your bench.
Right. Well, Pollard was a guy yesterday I was forced to start in some spots, and the fact that he scored, I leapt off the couch, because it's like, those are always the best when you're forced, like, oh, I got to start this guy. And then he gets, 8 carries and 1 target, and he ends up scoring a touchdown. So expected fantasy points were low in that game for a guy like Tony Pollard, but he's just so much. I mean, Zeke Elliott, I'll give Zeke Elliott this. He's the most efficient, beautiful runner for 3 yards you'll ever see. It's never more than 3 yards, but the vision and the footwork are flawless as he falls forward for 3 yards. Get him off the field. I mean, this team, no quarterback, handing the ball to Zeke Elliott, 22 times a game, and they're winning. And they're winning. It's just so annoying, because that's another coach that's a big dummy. But hopefully once they get Dak back and this offense can get rolling, and we can be excited about starting these guys again. But right now it's so hard to start. You really can't start Pollard or Zeke, or anybody else for that matter, except for CeeDee Lamb, who ended up still with 10 fantasy points on only 7 targets, or maybe 12 fantasy points on 7 targets. It's just so tough.
You just imagine the coaches on the Dallas sideline after the Tony Pollard touchdown being like, "Yeah, do you guys know that Tony's that fast? I didn't know Tony's that fast." Well, how do you not give that guy the ball a little bit more often? Like, they were talking about it entering the season, that they were going to pump up his receiving role, and that's not happening for whatever reason, because nothing else is going on. It just doesn't make sense. There are plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know as much about football as that guy, so we'll just see what's going on. But then they do stuff like this, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you not getting with this? Why are you running 19 times with Abs guy when you could just give like 5 more carries to Tony Pollard and hope that he's going to break one of those, like he just did, and like we've seen him do in the past?
Matt, the difference between you and most NFL coaches like Matt Rule is they knew somebody that you didn't know. These coaches, all of them need an analytics department that has a fantasy football player on it. That's all they need. And someone that just sits on the sidelines eating a bag of Lay's and just goes, "You have Tony Pollard." Like every 5 minutes, that's all they're going to say. They're not going to call the play. They're not going to tell you what to do. Just reminding you, you have Kyle Pitts. You have DJ Moore. Just remind them, because these coaches they just think they're smarter than they are. That we're not going to say that we're not calling the plays. Just reminding you that your best players are sitting on the sidelines while Zeke Elliott pukes forward for 3 yards. It's so stupid.
Mike, I can just imagine Mike McCarthy. If this kid tells me about elusive rating one more time, I'm going to spit out my uncooked steak.
I don't even know. I don't even need to know elusive rating. I have freaking eyeballs in my head. Like, I don't know. I just know Tony Pollard is awesome and Zeke is not. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Those are the ones that get me too. It's like, I get if you've been coaching for a long time and you can't wrap your head around going for it in a particular 4th down situation because the computers say it's the optimal.
Sure.
Path. But
right.
I can't get if you're a football coach and you're like, well, why should we give Tony Pollard the ball more when we have Ezekiel Elliott?
So stupid.
All right, let's move on to the Ravens and Bengals, the Sunday night game to close things out here. T. Higgins allegedly took part in this game, but left very early, aggravated an ankle sprain. We're going to have to watch the progress on that. And then with him gone even, only Jamar Chase and Hayden Hurst topped 4 targets. So it was really a disappointing performance for the Bengals offense.
Yeah, what a gross night for football. But Higgins didn't even look like late in the second half. He's standing next to the coach, helmet on, like they're at the 5-yard line. It's like he's ready to get into the game and go. Like I can, so he didn't, it's not like he was in a walking boot on the sidelines, helmet off. Looked like he was ready to play, helmet on, ready to go in the game, ready to be called in, and they didn't. So I don't know what would happen there. Maybe they're just playing it smart with him. Fine. But that was just brutal. 0 points on so many rosters, but yeah, and then they just seem I feel like this is the second week in a row. They played Thursday night last week against Miami, where they just couldn't get Jamar Chase the football. I think his first catch 2 weeks ago was a halfback toss pass to get Jamar Chase involved. You could just see he catches it, the frustration. Even yesterday, like they're trying to get him on these Philly specials and these end arounds. It's just, why can't they just drop back and deliver the ball to him and have him be awesome? I mean, 10 targets, but he only had another one. They only had like 12 fantasy points or something at his 10 targets. So I don't know. We'll see if they can get it rolling here. I mean, they owned the Ravens last year. I mean, that's where Jamar Chase and this whole team, Joe Burrow, did their damage 2 weeks against the Ravens during the year. So it's really disappointing to see this performance out of them.
Yeah, we did see the Bengals turn it on late last season as well. Joe Burrow in particular turned it on late last season. Last year, it was further removed from the ACL tear of the year before. This time, he did have the preseason appendectomy. So, maybe he's catching up on his physical readiness, but it's getting to be a little bit late in the season to, blame that. So we'll see how things progress here. Unfortunately, like you just have to play Jamar Chase and be disappointed with what you get, but at least he's not killing you. So, we'll see where things go. Samaje Perine beat Joe Mixon by 1 target in this game as well, but Joe Mixon led him by 10 routes. So that's one of those where you say, man, I wish that didn't happen, but it's not really something to worry about or adjust our expectations going forward. We would certainly like to get more yards per carry from Joe Mixon, but similarly, you just play him and take what you get at this point. On the Baltimore side, no Rashad Bateman, which obviously we hate. Playing time up for Devin Duvernay in this game. He was even with Demarcus Robinson in that category, but he was clearly much more of an offensive focal point in this game. Only Duvernay and Mark Andrews had more than 2 targets for the Ravens in this game. And Duvernay also had 3 carries. So they were trying to get Devin Duvernay the ball in this game. That's worth keeping in mind. It doesn't make him like a must start if Rashad Bateman remains out going forward, but it makes him an interesting guy in deeper lineup decisions, especially now that we're getting into bye weeks.
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting to get, the different pieces, the Demarcus Robinson, the Devin Duvernay, and, Lamar's a guy that this is like his second or third bad week this year, 5 weeks in. I mean, the passing isn't there, but again, the weapons, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to throw to. Mark Andrews was awesome again, and Devin Duvernay looks good too. Like he's a guy that we expected maybe a little bit more from last year, but he looks good. They got him involved, 3 carries, nice to see. So Duvernay's a guy that I would be willing to start moving forward, as long as he's the number 1 receiver that week, depending on injury.
The Bengals defense is also something we probably need to give a little bit more credit to. They entered this week as number 7 in overall defensive DVOA, according to Football Outsiders. So we've just come to expect it to be a soft spot, but maybe it's something that's all of a sudden, it's not something where you're going to bench Lamar Jackson, but maybe you say, maybe Lamar Jackson's not going to explode this week for me.
Right. Yeah. It's just been interesting. Even the play calling was, I mean, they were winning like most of the first half yesterday. Dobbins looked good, 8, and then he has only 8 carries on the game. Like, this could have been a game where you're without your top receiver in Bateman. You go out there, you can run the ball a little bit. You're having success running the ball. Even Kenyon Drake looked pretty good on some of those runs, and you just don't run. You don't run the ball at all. So I just find that very, very interesting. And so the play calling was odd, but Dobbins, I feel like should have got the ball way more than he did. But the run game should be okay moving forward. I don't want to have to bench Lamar because he's a guy that's just could pop off for massive weeks. But this is the 3rd week where he just can barely. Did he even get to 200 passing yards yesterday? I don't think he did. So it's just tough to. I think he had like 120 a little late in the game. So I don't think he got there. But
174.
Yeah, 174. I mean, that's gross. Again, not a lot of weapons there, but still, it's 2022. You got to get over 200 passing yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. J.K. Dobbins played no snaps at all in the 4th quarter. John Harbaugh said afterward that he was just on a pitch count. It wasn't like an injury setback, but he played 9 fewer snaps than in week 4, 1 fewer snap even than his first game of the season. So I don't know why you would have to have Dobbins on that much of a pitch count in his 3rd appearance, especially in a close game in the 4th quarter. And so I think the takeaway here is just that you have to consider J.K. Dobbins hopefully not a fantasy starter right now until the workload picks up. Somebody you can use if you need to, but like this is the risk is even if they need some help on offense, they're not forcing J.K. Dobbins into the game.
Right, which was silly, and I thought that they should have done that. But another, with all the tight end injuries we had this week, a sneaky guy that I thought could sneak into a lineup was Isaiah Likely. I thought maybe this would be the game without Bateman. Maybe he could get a couple targets. He saw 2 targets, he caught them both. But I feel like they got him a little bit more involved. If he wasn't going to be involved this week, then he's never going to be involved outside of an injury to Mark Andrews.
Yeah, he was actually 3rd among Ravens tight ends in playing time behind Josh Oliver. So Isaiah Likely belongs on the waiver wire in most cases.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this week 5 recap edition of the podcast. Head over to draftsharks.com now. You can find more of our recaps in the Shark Bite section. That's free for anybody to read. You don't have to be a DS insider. And then we're going to be moving on to week 6. We'll have the free agent focus. We'll have the deep dive free agent focus for those leagues that go beyond the norm. We will have our rankings for week 6 up tomorrow. Projections, of course, that also feed into my team's pages that give you the projections and the starter recommendations for your specific team in your specific scoring formats. Make sure you're a DS insider to take advantage of all of that. And then, of course, Adam, do we have a new episode of the Deep End from you and Mike this week?
Oh, yeah. Deep End. We always go Wednesday nights, giving you a little preview, little fab budget preview for all the high stakes leagues that roll off on Wednesday. We talk about, we'll talk about week 5 storylines, probably hopefully a couple more coaching firings before we get to Wednesday. And it'll be a great show. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Deep End.
Nice. 8 p.m. Wednesday. Join Mike and Adam right here on the Draft Sharks YouTube channel. As for now, I'm Matt Schauf. For my partner, Adam Krautwurst, and the entire Draft Sharks crew, thanks so much for swimming with us.